It's, I think, 5:30. Um, yeah. Shall we start? Ma'am, I think you, yeah, mute. Yeah, so we'll begin. Good evening, everyone. And as people are still joining, we'll begin. Um, and I think we have more people joining in, but then, we will start. Um, Good evening. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to this first in a series of webinars by CDCC and NRLM called the NRLM Think series on various facets of work with SSG collectives. I'll take 2 minutes to talk about CDCC. It is a unique initiative focused on becoming a resource hub for community collectives, especially SSG federations, and it works closely with NRLM. We'll be carrying out research and documentation and are currently involved in an exciting action research pilot on strengthening model CLFs with 5 SRLMs in Bihar, Jharkhand, MP, Chhattisgarh, and UP. NRLM is currently world's largest mobilization of rural women. Every week, 7 crore women meet in their hamlets, conduct meetings, and carry out financial transactions. These women's collectives are covering close to, more than 50% of India's rural population. This groundswell of collective energy presents an unprecedented opportunity to transform quality of lives in villages. As these collectives become stronger and emerge as community development organizations, it presents a structured opportunity to solve market and governance failures, ensuring that governments and markets work better for the poor. It is our privilege to partner with NRLM in this endeavor. We are also deeply grateful for the support provided by Gates Foundation towards this work, particularly to Anjani and Madhu for their thought leadership and deep commitment on the idea of communities taking charge of their own development. So welcome to all the participants. Currently, we have close to 145 participants and more are logging in. We have participants today from various SRLMs, private sector organizations, and civil society. We have an excellent panel well placed to deliberate and show us pathways on this evolving agenda. Let me take a few minutes to introduce our illustrious chair and panel today. The session is being chaired by Ms. Neeta Kejriwal, the Joint Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development. She has more than 25 years of experience in Government of India in Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and Department of Economic Affairs. She's been one of the strong pillars behind the success of the Day NRLM program, and he has been associated with the program right from its early days, even at its precursor of the SGSY, as she was saying, and leading up to its successful pilot and then the scale-up. Coming on to our panelists, we've put the detailed profile in the chat box, briefly introducing them for our participants. So we have Professor Simi Joy. She's the professor at IIM Kozhikode. Her research interests include innovations and organizational forms addressing inequality, with special focus on social innovations, socio-tech enterprises, and micro enterprises. Mr. Neeraj Kumar is the business head at Colgate-Palmolive. He has a vast experience of working in the FMCG sector, including with Amul. Then we have Mr. Sachin Sharma from ITC, and he's involved with channel operations and heads the commodity sourcing and supply chains, agriculture services, and rural marketing. Then we have Mr. Hari Kishore, who is the executive director of Kudumbashi, the Kerala SRLM. Kudumbashi, as we know, has done exceptionally well on supporting women collectives with market-based solutions across a range of services. Finally, we have Professor Rajesh Aithal. who's the professor of marketing at the prestigious Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, which also happens to be my alma mater, from where I graduated in 1989. Um, Ma'am, may I now request you for opening comments and taking the session forward? Thank you.
Um, Thank you, Madhu. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
I welcome all the panelists today, and also all the participants. Good evening to everyone. So today we are basically going to deliberate on the topic of women federations making markets work for the poor, solving the last mile access and aggregation. And basically what we are going to discuss and deliberate on is how do we encourage the SRLMs to explore and pilot public and private sector partnerships with SAG federations? And also, how do we present the NRLM business case for partnership with the corporates? So basically, what we are trying to talk about is how and in which sectors or areas can SAG federations partner with the private sector to basically help the rural poor access the markets? And then are there some enabling policies and strategies in place which will support this kind of initiative, or are there any obstacles in place which would be hampering the development of such partnerships? And if we really wish to push this kind of partnerships, are there any specific issues that need to be addressed by us, by NRLM, both from the private sector perspective and also from the perspective of the SAG federations? And finally, to try to develop a roadmap for building this kind of partnership. So we, as already introduced, we have an excellent panel, and it's a very mixed kind of panel with academicians, senior management representatives from the corporates, and also the CEO of the SRLM in Kerala, that is Kudum Shri, to give the NRLM perspective of things. So before we start talking on the topic, I'll just like to lay down some of the ground rules. So basically, we will be giving about 7 to 8 minutes to each of the participants to speak in the first round. And then we'll be having a question answer session only towards the end. A couple of poll questions we'll be taking in the middle. So I'll kind of be also keeping time a little. So I'll be indicating the time limit to the panelists also. So before we start, I go to any of the panelists. I thought it would make sense to give a perspective, a background on NRLM. So because as Madhu mentioned right now, NRLM is the program which is basically the biggest mobilizer of women in the rural areas now into their institutions. So a little bit of understanding about the program would kind of give a background and a perspective to the whole discussion. So can I request the presentation to be put up? So this is a very short presentation, basically to next please. So I'll be talking basically about the framework of NRLM, about the achievements, the scope, coverage, etc., and what kind of cases we have of market-led interventions, and what are the opportunities for partnership with the private sector, with the institutions built by NRLM. Next, please. So basically, what we are doing under NRLM, the objective is that one woman from every rural poor family should be brought under the SAG network, and we estimate that there would be some about 10 crore such families. So that's the kind of work that is cut out for us. And these women are brought into the self-help groups, and then they are supported in various ways. So first is that these self-help groups are federated at different levels. So we have the village level federations called the village organizations, the cluster level federations. So this whole institutional structure is being set up, and all the support that is given is through these institutional structures. So primarily the SHGs work on savings and interloaning, etc. And then the mission is providing some capital support in terms of grants to these organizations, which kind of remains with them in perpetuity and forms their corpus, which can be used by them for small interloaning and investment in for consumption purposes as well as livelihood purposes. Then we try to link them with the banks because we expect that some capitalization should happen from the government, but that should help in leveraging a lot more financial resources from the banking sector. So for that, we work on the financial inclusion. And then we work, of course, on market linkages on all kinds of livelihoods, be it farm livelihoods, non-farm livelihoods. So the support, the facilitation, the hand-holding, the skill training that is required for all these things, this is what we work on. The unique feature of NRLM is that it works through the community members themselves. So we have this concept of community resource persons. And these are women from the SHGs who have been trained to work in various aspects of the program. So they help in the social mobilization and the institution building. They work in all kinds of livelihood areas like as Pashu Sakhis or Krishi Sakhis. They work as bank Sakhis. They work as banking correspondent agents, Ocean Sakhis. So in almost every area of the program, we have these community resource persons. And then, of course, we have our SRLMs who have their professional structures right from the state level to the sub-block level. There are these professionals who are providing this long-term hand-holding support to these community institutions. So this broadly is the framework of NRLM, with the community institutions at the center and all others facilitating services being provided to these institutions and through these institutions. Next, please. So this is the community structure that we have. We have these SHGs at the bottom of the structure, and then they are organized into village organizations and then cluster level federations, and the different kinds of roles that each of these organizations play are also indicated. So the role of the higher level federations is basically to provide hand-holding and monitoring support, and also, of course, they work for the financial intermediation for the members. Next, please. So in terms of progress, right now we have almost 7 crore rural women already organized into more than 62 lakh SHGs actually. And then we have about 3.57 lakh village organizations and almost 32,000 cluster level federations. And we are working in all states and union territories in the country. In terms of capitalization support that I talked about, the community investment support fund that is provided by the mission as grant to these institutions, we have given now more than 10,400 crores. And we have almost 3 lakh community resource persons working in the different states in the country. So these are, of course, as I said, members of the self-help groups themselves. In terms of bank credit, what we expect is that by providing some capitalization support, we should be able to leverage at least 10 times that of financial resources from the banking sector. And there we have done well. Now, actually, it is more than 3 lakh crore of bank credit that has been accessed by these community women self-help groups ever since 2013-14. Also in farm livelihoods, we are working with Mahila Kisans. So there is a specific program called the Mahila Kisan Sashaktikaran Pariyojana, but even beyond that, we are working with the Mahila Kisans, and right now we are working with more than 86 lakh Mahila Kisans. In terms of non-farm kind of enterprises, we have a small scheme called the Starter Village Entrepreneurship Program, and this is implemented in a block mode. That is that a block is selected for implementation of this scheme. And there more than 98,900 enterprises have been set up. And these are like small enterprises set up by mostly by the women. with support from a lot of technical support coming from the mission and through the some national research organizations. Next, please. So I'll directly come to the farm livelihood and non-farm livelihood part of NRLM. Though a lot of work is being done in terms of institution building, social mobilization, in terms of financial inclusion, etc. So under the farm livelihoods, we are working now on value chain interventions in a big way around a lot of products. And we are promoting both producer groups and producer enterprises owned and governed by women farmers themselves. We are also working on non-timber forest produce, and some value chains have already been developed around lac, tussar, some medicinal plants, etc. And we get support from a lot of government and non-government organizations for all these kind of works. We have a very strong capacity building architecture already created. So right from what we call the national resource persons, we have a pool of national resource persons with skill set from different kinds of livelihood activities, farming, animal husbandry, organic farming, so different kind of skills. And then the states also have their own state resource persons. And of course, as I mentioned, the community resource persons. So this whole capacity building architecture is already in place. And we are also trying to do certification of the CRPs through Manage in Hyderabad, FAO, etc. We are setting up custom hiring centers. These are basically tool banks, agricultural tool banks. They are being set up both under MKSP program and also generally in many of the villages. And it really helps helps the federations who are managing these to earn something also, but also helps the villagers to access these agricultural. And a lot of convergence now, this is being focused on with Ministry of Agriculture, Tribal Affairs, Animal Husbandry, etc. And convergence with MG Narega in a big way, because the resources are huge under MG Narega, and there are provisions for providing individual assets and common assets under the program. And also setting up now like Nutri Gardens, etc. So we are trying to converge in a big way with Narega to be able to get these benefits for our SAG members. Next, please. So this is just a snapshot of the kind of work that is happening under Mahila Kisan Sashakti-Karan Pariyojana, and in the different blocks under the annual action plans of the states. The organic farming work that we are doing, the value chain work that we are doing, and the map kind of gives you an idea of where all these activities are concentrated. So MKSP is almost being implemented in all the states, and these are kind of pilot projects which can then be scaled based on the learnings, etc. And basically, they are focusing on agroecological practices and also helping in drudgery removal, in ensuring all the year-round income, as well as some nutritive food for the households. Next, please. So in terms of farm livelihood market initiatives, so this is where you would be interested in seeing how these women have been organized into clusters, into producer groups, etc. And then they are able to take up these kind of activities and these kind of things. So we have given examples from a few states. They are happening literally all across the country, and it happened in a big way during the COVID scene also, where the producer groups could bring the vegetables, fruits, etc. To the different people. Sometimes even selling online through digital platform. Next. Next, please. So in terms of previous one, in terms of value chains, we have examples of pigeon pea in Jharkhand and of turmeric value chain in MP. So these are just some examples we have under around a lot of products around pulses, hill brooms, mango value chain, lychees, vegetables, fruits, all kinds of spices, all kinds of value chains being created all across the country. Next, please. So under non-farm livelihoods, also, as I said, we have the Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program, where again, Kudumshri is one of our support organizations. And what happens basically is that a block is taken and an appraisal is done on what kind of enterprises actually have a potential in that block, how many of those enterprises have a potential. And after doing this kind of appraisal, and again having the community resource persons who have go through a almost 60-day intensive training on various aspects of enterprise development, then we start implementing this program by setting up enterprises for rural women. We have a very small program on Ajivika Gramin Express Yojana. This is basically to provide transportation facility in areas which have got good roads constructed under the PMGSY program, etc., but the transport services are not available. So the self-help groups, either as a group or through one of their members, are able to run some transport services in these areas. A lot of scalable model enterprises are being created in many of the states, and there is an attempt to scale it to all other states, etc. And we have this World Bank supported National Rural Economic Transformation Project. We actually did a first phase of the project, and this is the second phase. And in this second phase, we are actually focusing more on livelihood activities, both farm livelihoods as well as non-farm livelihoods. And a lot of new initiatives are being tried out here. In a big way, we'll be working on producer groups and producer enterprises of women being set up, as well as clusters of maybe artisans and handicrafts, and also enterprises, maybe a little bigger enterprises than those done under Startup Village Entrepreneurship Program. And all the technical support skilling that is required will come through this program. Next, please. So again, under non-farm initiatives, we have a lot of scalable enterprise models. This is something that is working in almost all states, these canteens being run by the women's groups. And then Mr. Hari Kishore, I think, will be talking more, so I won't go into details, but how the federations have been managing the Kochi Metro, the take-home ration units, the construction groups that are being managed. In Chhattisgarh, we have these groups that are doing brick making and providing also bricks to the programs of the Government of India, like the PMAY, the Prime Minister Awas Yojana Gramin, etc. Next, please. And also there have been these clusters that have been formed, like of the famous Madhubani painting, where they have created these production centers, and they've been supported with design, upgradation, branding, marketing, and they've been supplying to different parts of the country. Cafe Kudumshri, again, in fact, Kudumshri has been not only implementing it itself, they have been supporting all the other states also in taking this this kind of initiative forward. And you can see, I mean, with a lot of training and with proper sanitation and hygiene practices, food at reasonable cost being provided. And these things have happened in a big way during the COVID scenario also. Next, please. So at the central level, we have been having these Saras Melas. These happen in the states also, actually, 2 Saras Melas at least every year, maybe many more. And also at the central level, we've been doing these, where the SAG members or the groups themselves come and sell their products. We have a lot of these SAG products on the government e-marketplace also, which is a recent initiative of Government of India for online sale of products. And with ITC, Orissa SRLM has a tie-up for Agarbatti manufacturing, and Bihar SRLM has a tie-up with the Asian Foundation for this, again, these Madhubani paintings, and these have been supplied. You may have actually seen these in the Mumbai airport, and they have been put up there also. Next, please. So, so what is the opportunity? I think you've got a fair idea of the kind of work that has gone, this kind of social capital, the kind of community collectives that have already been created, and on which we are now still working to create. So the women have come out of their homes. They have really been given a lot of training. They have developed a lot of empowerment also, and they have learned to work in groups. And we have both the social groups in terms of SAGs, village organizations, and cluster level federations. But we also have the livelihood collectives in terms of producer groups and producer enterprises and clusters of federations. So a robust ecosystem has been created under NRLM, and now we have a lot of confidence from the banking, the financial institutions also, which you can see by the kind of credit mobilization that has happened. And we have the community resource person, trained women who are already doing a lot of work, and a lot of support is being provided. So this is what NRLM has to offer. And this is where, this is our value proposition for partnerships, where we have still got a lot of work to do is to improve the access to markets for these SAG women working on small enterprises, etc. So that is where we need to do a lot of work. Next, please. I think that is it from me. So so this is what I basically wanted to give a small background on NRLM. And now we'll go to the panelists. So first of all, I am going to invite Professor Simi Joy from IIM Kozhikode. So Professor, my question for you is, you said you've been working in this area now, and particularly social enterprises and women collectives, etc. So what do you see are the challenges in the markets reaching the poor, or vice versa, the poor reaching the market? And what kind of role do you think the women's federations can play in mitigating these issues of access to markets? Professor Joy.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Neeta Kejriwal, for the question as well as the great introduction you gave in your presentation, because that shows us the big picture of what is available out there. And that helped me really focus more into where we go forward from here. So to contextualize this a little bit, since I think of Muhammad Yunus and Grameen Bank, and with this idea of providing the poor with the financial resources to start their own enterprises, from then onwards, we have kicked in this conversation about entrepreneurship as a vehicle for mitigating poverty, creating employment, empowerment, and development that has been on. And we have been on this task for last maybe 2 decades, and in which quite a lot of mobilization has happened in terms of bringing the women together and making finances available for them and skilling available for them. But has it delivered the kind of objectives that we are looking at in terms of economic empowerment and poverty eradication and generation of employment? So there was a research report from Asim Premji University. So apparently in India still, only about 20% of the micro enterprises are women-led micro enterprises. And they employ only 16% of workers, and they do only 9% of value add. So where do we lack? Where, in spite of all this mobilization, and we have this massive infrastructure from the government as well as NGOs, a lot of people working in that field. So where are we missing out? So one of the studies that we had done from Indian IIM Kozhikode, we have a Center for Social Innovation, was actually trying to understand what are the limits to growth of these entrepreneurs. So we actually went out to meet women micro entrepreneurs from urban and rural areas who are operating individual as well as collective kind of enterprises, and asked them, both the successful ones, successful one in the sense that they have been operating and they have been generating, but they did have problems in terms of scaling further. And there were unsuccessful ones who tried for a maybe a couple of years or maybe 5 years and then gave up. So we went to ask them what happened. So one of the biggest issues has been market access. So to give an example of a rural women who went into farming kind of activity, say, yes, we produced all this, but everybody in the village produces the same thing and the harvest is done at the same time. So you take it to a local market, it doesn't sell. But in contrast, 30 kilometers away in the urban area, said, yeah, we just get the palak out and take it to the roadside, and there are people leaving from offices and they buy it. So market access works very differently based on where they are. And then for the women who are just 30 kilometers away to create that market access, yes, they know the existence of those markets where they can take the things, some of them. But then that requires another infrastructure, which is you have to hire an auto or some kind of vehicle. You need to have a person and you need to share your money with them. So that creates added layers in terms of actually physically accessing the market. So that was one of the issue, the physical access of market. And the second issue was the scale. There was an enterprise that we worked with, and they were doing well in terms of producing, and their products were well received. They had a little shop in their village, and they were also supplying to some of the nearby towns. And in fact, one of the largest retail chains came asking them, okay, we would like to feature your product in our stores, but then we need the product at certain scale. Like 40,000 units or whatever. And that was not something they could not produce on their own. So that became an issue. And some of the other ones, the issue was delivering the quality consistently. And the thing is, a lot of them, they get their raw materials from the local markets, which might not be able to supply them steadily or with a consistent quality. At the end of which the product also doesn't get, the quality becomes inconsistent over time, and then the markets don't want to take it. And then continuous supply becomes another issue, because at least 97.5% of them operate with less than 3 people. So one of them falls sick or something else happens, or there is a wedding in the village, then they are not able to produce and supply gets interrupted. So these issues became problematic for them to approach the markets on their own. So that's where the federations come in place, the clusters. It de-risked them in a lot of ways. So in some cases, you can bulk procure the supplies. And then you can have trainings and you can procure technology to streamline the operations. And then you can consolidate your efforts to reach the markets. So that way, that has been helping a little bit. But then again, problems still persist. One issue is really understanding what the market wants. Because they are talking about, initially they were all thinking of themselves as micro producers catering to the hyper local market, pretty much their village or surrounding villages. But if you are thinking of markets that are far away with consumers that are very different from them in socio-economic, aesthetic, all kinds of parameters, even to understand what they want, that's not something that they can do on their own. So that needs a little bit of help and hand-holding. And there have been initiatives where they bring in designers or bring in other people to work with them to train them or take them to markets to see for themselves how to deal with those markets or understand those customers, their needs and their taste. So things like women who worked with Seva, the kind of colors they used was not the kind of colors that urban women wanted. So they had to change the color palette for that. So those kind of things matter. But then problems still persist in terms of quality. So this is also an issue of an informal segment coming in contact with a formal segment where there are expectations of quality that are fairly different. So having a couple of stitches loose might be okay, for a local shop, but that might not be okay if you are trying to supply to a boutique or a larger retail chain. So that becomes an issue. And again, delivery, consistently delivering quality, then ensuring the steady supplies has been reported as a problem. And also, a lot of these initiatives still operate in a project mode. We need to create organizations. We need to make these clusters into organization that has its own roles and structures as well as processes. So sometimes what happens is it becomes person dependent. People who are running it, when if they are good and driven and they have the vision, it runs well during the time they are there. But when the leadership goes, it doesn't. So if we look at Lijat Papad or Amul, they are still running as organizations, irrespective of who came in and who went out. But that we haven't been able to create that for a lot of the federations yet. We are at the bottom of a learning curve, but we can reach there. That's my hope and belief. And also in doing that, I think we have to see an exit plan. So the idea is to make these beneficiaries empowered enough to deal with the markets on their own. So if we have achieved our objectives, we should be able to leave it to them and exit. But sometimes we keep this going. So we need to have that plan of what kind of hand-holding, what kind of transition, and then who do we hand it over to? So in that way, beneficiaries, the skilling might not, will have to go beyond the skilling for just producing for the market. But that skilling has to go to a level where they are able to run organizations. And everybody doesn't have that capabilities, but that's where we'll have to look at the second generation. There are people who are getting more educated and coming that, how do we retain them in those organizations? So a lot of them, we educated them and then send them off to urban companies and markets, and they are not part of the system anymore. So it's the people who are uneducated, people who are trying to eke out their daily livelihood, who are part of that organization. But that's not the vision that we need to have, probably. We need to think of this as organizations in making and corporations in making, perhaps.
Complete.
Yeah, that was my last thought there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think there were some very good points that you made and very correctly analyzed the issues here of scale, of cost, of continuity of supply, and also the issues of understanding markets. And you also suggested that we should have some standards, SOPs in place if we really want these organizations to go. So create some models, some templates, and also capacitate the women to such an extent that after some time, the facilitating organization or agency can kind of move out and let them continue on their own. So thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you.
I will now invite Mr. Neeraj Kumar, Head Colgate Palmolive, and I would like you to talk on, like for a company like yours, and particularly for the FMCG sector overall, what role do you see of partnering with women federations? And in this context, I have come across a Shakti project which HUL had implemented a long time back. And so in view of the fact that these kind of community institutions have been created in a big way, do you see some kind of some model of this kind again being implemented and with maybe more of success? So Mr. Kumar, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Neeta Kejriwal. It's a very relevant subject these days. If you really look at the corporate world, which they have been discussing in the boardroom, and the way the market has evolved and the external environment, if you look at in our corporate language, you call it go-to-market. And if you look at a decade ago, the go-to-market go to market is nothing like taking the product to the consumer. So there's a channel that you use it to travel the brands from factories to the household. And earlier is to be very linear, one liner, maximum two liner. But over the decade, it has become very complex because the need and the markets have evolved. So what probably I would say is, while the Unilever, they created the Project Shakti, as you said rightly, long ago, but after that there has been many trials, and we have our friend from ITC here. They have been doing it either in Agavati or otherwise. Even Imami have done in Bombay. So there are multiple. Even in Colgate also we did with long back in heartland of Uttar Pradesh, some program called Nehru Rural, some program was there. Long back we tried. Even when I was in East India, I also tried with Jivika in Bihar. So what my experience with Jivika and as well as the need which currently both side has, I believe as much as SSG, so the corporate, I believe this is the sunrise time for these SHGs to become a channel in the distribution. Of course there will be some noises and hindrances that need to be sorted out. And what I liked in my previous panelist comments, if the participants would have listened carefully, what is needed is building a large scale, which is like an organization. The second piece is this is not a time to have a pilot, a project, because if you keep a pilot under a project, the share of mind is the minimalistic. So how if I look at the success story of the Amul, when I joined Amul way back in '99, the turnover of Amul was 1,700 crore, and that including the the oil business called Dhara. If you remove it, it was 1,000 crore. And if all of you know, is more than 40,000 crore in the last 2 decades only, because the scale. So scale is what is it called in a common parlance also, size matters. So if we can generate scale, and we are not in the project and pilot, I believe it will catch the eyeballs of all the organization. I fail to understand any organization will say, oh no, I don't want SHGs. Look at the count in your presentation, ma'am, which you shared. That's a workforce. I don't think any FMCG company, including Unilever, will have those many distributors, salesmen, feet on the ground. And while the urban cities, the consumers are looking at
I think we have lost Mr. Kumar.
We could probably we have a couple of poll questions. We could probably take those, ma'am. Would you like to, till the time the speaker comes back again?
So I think the first poll question which we have, and we request you to simply answer with agree or disagree in the chat box. Right, Madhu?
Yes, ma'am.
So the question
no,
is...
Ma'am, the answer, we'll have a pop-up and they can simply click agree and disagree.
Okay, so the question is on the screen for you. Next phase of growth in SHGs will require their active engagement with market-based solutions. Do you agree or disagree? So request all the participants to please take the poll. Meanwhile, can anyone try calling Mr. Kumar to see what is the problem?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it
We
would
could
be
probably have the next speaker, ma'am. And
so we'll go to the next speaker, and when Mr. Kumar joins back.
I'm back, and my apology. The electricity went off, and then I had to come back. So
Please carry on.
Okay.
You have another
So
6 minutes or so to go.
yes. So it's a fantastic opportunity both sides, and as a corporate, we see the value of such a sizable mass. It's just that we need to create a movement. Maybe what is the starting point towards a corporate we look forward is a data resource which is available. And let's say if I join back a corporate, I need to know a resource where I need to reach out, get the pan India or a critical state in the country which can make impact, to have a share of mind in any sort of the discussion. So the moment it has got an impact, it will definitely have long lasting impact both sides. I'll just give one thought on this. Most of the FMCG companies, they lack credible source of distribution in the rural area. And that's the reason why the counterfeit products are, a kind of problem for the consumers. And they, despite paying for the, the product, they end up using the wrong product, and at times is an ill product. And if I, give the some sense, what I read an article is about more than 70,000 crore. That's the opportunity that we are looking at to eliminate an evil in the society. Without naming the brand, a top multinational company brand, the counterfeit, as per one of the article which I read, is 50% of the original brand sales is the counterfeit. That's the estimate. And SHGs can bring that credibility to the locals because, it's the equity. If I look at linking the Prime Minister's two missions recently, he has been emphasizing on the Atmanirbhar and vocal for local. These SHGs are basically the founding stones for these two programs. So 70,000 crore turnover, and can look at the government taxes which is getting lost, as well as the quality, health, hygiene. I mean, these mind-boggling numbers for all of us. So is the need is the SHGs need to be in the channel as a channel partner in the distribution. At times, of course, as a contract manufacturer, which let's say Agarbatti in case of the ITC, it can become a state level. Let's say SHGs can really become a contract manufacturer, which I'm sure many corporate will find is a low cost, because there are many middlemen which gets eliminated. So if I look at distribution, if I look at a contract manufacturing, and then third is which Jivika, when I was with working with Jivika, the idea had came is how do you co-brand? Because the learning which I have from the Amul journey, there is no success without shouting out to the consumer and highlight your quality. So I think Professor Simi also highlighted on the quality, consistency, but beyond that, the shouting is even more important. The consumer should know this is an equity which I want to consume. I want to give it to my friends, kids, mother, parents. So I think these are 2-3 pieces which is a brilliant space for the corporate. And if let's say both sides collaborate and get to a scale I believe it'll be a different rural go-to-market for the corporate that I can watch for all the private corporates in India.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very interesting and a lot of confidence in SAGs and that they can function as channels of distribution. They can work in contract manufacturing, and very important point about co-branding and shouting out about the product and ensuring quality, and also telling people that here is the quality and this is what you should be taking. So, and of course, with your experience with Jivika, I think that probably, I mean, it's one of the very well-run programs in the country, and the advantage here is that you have the SRLM with its professional manpower that can give you the data, that can put you in connect, and who can also provide a lot of support to you as well as to the SAGs, provide all the kind of a bridge between both. So thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. That was very interesting. Our next speaker is Mr. Sachin Sharma, head of ITC eChaupal. Mr. Sharma, you have a lot of experience already in partnering with some of the SRLMs. I'm also aware there was some partnership not only with Orissa, but also in Bihar, etc. So in this context of agricultural reforms and the possibility of setting up private market yards, what opportunities do you see for ITC and organizations like ITC for partnering with CLFs? And here, as Mr. Kumar also said, the numbers matter, and we have these CLFs or also the producer enterprises, etc., that we are trying to set up. They'll be having huge numbers. We've got some dairy companies being set up in a few states where the aim is to get even up to maybe 40,000 members as members of the producer enterprise. So keeping all this in mind, what do you suggest we need to do also to ensure that these kind of partnerships are made possible and are made successful? So over to you, Mr. Sharma.
Thank you, ma'am. And first of all, thank you to the organizers for providing this opportunity to share my views. Just to set a context, while we speak about role of women in rural, and rural is a very large, canvas. So, but even if you look at specifically in agriculture, which is a hardcore farming, today 68% women in village are involved in agriculture with one or the other way. So it's a very significant contribution. But there is a different set of irony here that when you look at the land holding which women are owning, that's around 13%. So and that too, if you see the large land holding, it's only 6%. So while the participation is there more from a work of, say, working as farm laborers, but there are certain sectors wherein they have been contributing very significantly. So while it is there across the grain crops, field crops and all, but you look at, say, dairy or vegetable farming, wherein the contribution of women has been significant. But it also poses certain challenges, which when I look at women in agriculture, you find there has been, say, one is the kind of job they have been doing are not the key decision making in terms of market access, but more in terms of working on the farm operations. And because of the lack of asset ownership, the lack of credit has been one of the challenge. And there came the SAG movement who tried addressing some of these issues by providing, say, creating the self-help groups and providing access to credit, providing better market linkages and so on. With this background, I think some of the strengths which we have with women in agriculture, it is one strong knowledge of agriculture. And I'm just bringing some of these facts because they are going to become very, very important in time to come, how the agriculture is getting transformed. Another is, say, gradually the role of women in, say, rural household is improving. So if you look at the, say, new generation, women are playing much more active role. They are becoming more powerful decision maker, even in the farmer families. So it's not that old time wherein they would only be participating in the activities, but would not be the decision maker. So that's also one change which we are seeing in our eChaupal and with our engagement. Now, with this background, there are new agriculture opportunities which have come up. The way Indian consumer approach to a food product is changing, or the way an international consumer food product approach is changing. So you would see going forward a lot of scenario wherein focus is gradually increasing on food safety. Focus is increasing on traceable agriculture supply chains and agriculture production. Focus is changing towards health and hygiene, towards organic, and all these changes are going to create important, role for women collectives to come. One is to farmer collectives income in general, and women collectives also can play a very significant role going forward, because the dimension will change from what we call is from buy the produce to produce the buy. So that's the change which is going to happen, and this is going to happen not only in grain crops, but it is also going to happen in a lot of crops which are gaining a lot of prominence, like say for example horticulture crops, vegetables, fruits and vegetables, and so on. So this has also come with the backdrop of agriculture reforms and schemes. So government has come up with 3 ordinances which we have also shared. Now there is a lot of openness in terms of various new models which will evolve. There are also important sectoral reforms which have come. So there are a lot of schemes which have come for animal husbandry, fishery, medicinal and aromatic plants, which is going to become a very important segment in India going forward because of immunity and importance of Indian herbs and Ayurveda medicines. And all these newer sectors would have very strong role of women to play in that, because women are playing this critical role in sectors like animal husbandry or horticulture, or even producing other things like fisheries and so on. So with this backdrop, I think role of women collectives is going to go up. And some of these I club the whole value chains into 2 buckets. One is things like say field crops, wherein the role of last mile aggregation, say supply chain efficiencies will be there. And therefore any type of collective, we say farmer collective and say women federations, can actually aggregate the produce of any grain crop at the village itself, do a quality testing, and it can be linked to any say organized player like ITC, and there are so many others who would look forward, because what value a collective will bring on the table is efficiencies and be in supply chain, because the land holdings are getting smaller, fragmentation is increasing, so you need aggregation at a village level so as to build the supply chain efficiency. Why should a produce move from a farmer to a mandi to an aggregator, and then it is coming to a processor or a buyer and goes to factory? It can directly go from a village, get aggregated, and directly can go for to a factory, for example. So a lot of supply chain efficiencies will come up. That's where one of the critical role I see. Second role, much more important I see, is that in the newer way of farming. So today, if you have to do a identity preserved, say production or a food safe production, you need to map the complete cultivation practices and convert them onto the ground. So here the collective role will become much more stronger, and that's where women collectives can also play a very important role. That how you align the production, which is food safe, which is traceable, and can then, there are going to be say ready buyers. Like for example, if I can give you example of ITC, we buy food safe spices, which is traceable. So there is a complete engagement with with the groups, farmer groups into this. Or we are currently working on some pilot locations on supporting farmers who are growing medicinal plants. Or within say our grain crops also, there is a lot of focus on uses of inputs in right quantities. So in these areas, there'll be a lot of role for women collectives. There are success stories, as you rightly said, in say milk, which is dairy farming. We are also supporting a couple of say producer groups, women producer groups in our dairy initiatives in Bihar and West Bengal. So this is also further going to go up in terms. There also the important element will be the right feeding practices to the animal, and ensuring that the milk is pure, clean, and going So women are going to play a very critical role in that leg also, because they are the one who are actually doing this animal husbandry aspect. So they know what to be fed to the animal and so on. So that's also another area which I feel has a lot of important role. Couple of other areas wherein the role will further come up. One is the food processing sector. So we are seeing with this new scheme of say PM, you know, Prime Minister Food Entrepreneurs Scheme, which is coming up. And also there is a trend which is emerging, which is about going for indigenous homemade products. So that's also one opportunity, and this is supported by e-commerce coming up. And today you don't really need a physical distribution channel to showcase or take your product to large consumer base. So this is also one area I am very hopeful, and I look forward. Another is the area of using women collectives for creating services in the villages. So custom hiring center, we are supporting a lot of such custom hiring centers in Bihar and UP and so many other states. And we have seen that women custom hiring centers are really one area wherein which will also have a lot of positive takers. And some of the other areas which are emerging are sustainable agriculture, wherein again you need to do agriculture practice, and I'm again emphasizing the fact that women are actually core to a lot of these agriculture practices. So that's one area. So and last but not the least is that how do you leverage digital technology to connect say women collectives to the market as well as some of these practices. That's where I think digital literacy is also going to play one of the key roles. So these are some of my thoughts when I look at agriculture and role of say women collectives and how it can be strengthened.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. That was very interesting. The different kind of areas in which we can work, and how the women collectives can actually provide the numbers, the aggregation, and ensure supply chain efficiencies. So thank you very much. I think we'll quickly go to the next speaker, because I think we are running a little behind time. So Mr. Hari Kishore, he is the CEO of Kudumshri, State Rural Livelihood Mission in Kerala. And Mr. Hari Kishore, I will request you to tell us how you have in your state been able to actually bring about a lot of partnership, and a lot of federations have actually been able to take up a lot of non-traditional kind of activities also. So quickly over to you, Mr. Hari Kishore.
Basically, thank you very much for the invitation. And Madam, is there any specific area which I would like to focus on? Be prepared for how the Federation is supporting the marketing?
Yes, yes.
Is that?
So basically, we want you to give some examples of how NRLM has been able to utilize these federations to create these partnerships and or scalable models have been created.
Okay, so basically there are 3-4 areas where federations are supporting various marketing initiatives. One is to create opportunities. SHG federations are creating a lot of opportunities for the micro enterprises, especially in the production sector, for marketing their products. And NRLM is totally supporting that initiative by providing various incentives, various funds, and also enabling this by giving trainings. So I'll give a couple of examples. What are the opportunities created by SHG Federation? One opportunity is SHG Federations conduct weekly markets. SHG Federations conduct monthly markets. SHG Federations in Kerala, they find an opportunity of nano market. What is the weekly market? Weekly market is an agriculture rural market where products are brought to a central place, and SHG Federations own it, and they coordinate it, and entrepreneurs, especially farm as well as non-farm, are able to sell the product. Weekly markets are slightly bigger, where once in a month for 3 or 4 days, SHG federations will bring this happens at the local body level. SHG federations will bring the products of all the self-help groups, and then they will, this is an event, so they will be able to sell the product to the customers. And third is nano market. We just called it nano market. It is not a nano market. It's a shelf space in a supermarket. So there are, in Kerala, it is more of a rural urban continuum. So there are local shops and supermarkets in each and every panchayat. So SHG federations find out a space for the products of self-help groups, and then we have about 600 such nano market shelf spaces in supermarkets for the enterprises. And then there are special fairs and festivals. We have a bigger season, Onam. So the total sales turnover is around 4 crore in the entire state for a special market. And then also we have cafe festivals in order to give incentive to our people who are in food business. So all these are coordinated by the SHG federations, and they create this marketing opportunity. So in the the first speaker mentioned about market access. So the market access creating opportunities done by SHG federation. Second is SHG federations also create markets. This is not a market access. This is finding opportunity, especially in the service sector. In Kerala specifically, there are good opportunities in the service sector. Service sector could be like somebody who is trained in geriatric care can find a job to different houses. Somebody trained in who can be a housemaid, SHG federation will find jobs for them. Cochin Metro, Madam mentioned in Madam's speech that a service opportunity in offices, in private offices, public offices, and also in the open market. So these service opportunities are either collected by SHG federations, or it goes to them, or there is an already existing system of giving the work to SHG federations, the service opportunity. So my point is SHG federations create opportunities. One quick example could be Harith Karmasena. We have a system called Harith Karmasena, green team for waste management. And in every panchayat, especially in bigger panchayat, there is a 30-member team. It's an enterprise. And panchayat give the work to SHG federation, and they will form this Harith Karmasena. They will collect plastic waste, they will recycle it, and they will use it for road tarring. They will recycle and sell it. So this entire service is done by SHG federation. So this is the second aspect. And NRLM is facilitating everything through multiple interventions. As I earlier mentioned, funds or training or hand-holding support or anything, and interest subsidy for loan and all. So these are the two primary areas: providing market access, creating opportunities. Third angle of SHG Federation support to enterprises is coordinating the demand, aggregating and all. Like if there's a bulk procurement, especially for Nutrimix, take-home ration, if there are say tailoring units, like we were able to stitch about 70 lakh masks. So during the time of COVID, we need to get clothes. So SHG federations will collect the demand from individual unit, aggregate it and do bulk purchasing and will give to them. That is one angle. For tailoring unit. For production unit, they will aggregate the demand and they will procure things at bulk rate, and then they will supply to unit. So aggregating demand, collecting demand and procuring, and also distributing. So this aggregating demand and making it slightly break even or reducing the cost is done by SHG federations. This is another third vertical. And now the fourth area will be to provide funds. Even though we are talking about creating marketing opportunities, starting of enterprises, creating sales enterprises, providing revolving fund and other funds for starting temporary value addition units, especially during season and all, there is requirement for funds. And SHG Federations is a one-stop bank where there is community enterprise fund. Then they also have their own funds. People need not go to banks. There is no big procedure. They evaluate the proposal and they give fund to enterprises and units in production as well as in service sector, in farm as well as in non-farm, agriculture and animal husbandry also. So this access to money is something which is very powerful. they can easily understand who will repay, and repayment is of course 99%. So they understand the repayment, people get money quickly in their doorsteps, and then there is a SHG linked repayment mechanism. So this is something which SHG federations providing fund is the fourth vertical. So I said about market access, creating opportunities, reducing cost by demand aggregation and all, and fourth is the fund, and fifth is something new, especially this happened in Kerala. Anything new, all the novel projects which are required or which are brought by the government is coordinated through SHG Federation. I'll give 3 examples. And this has market linkage. One example is during COVID, we had to start community kitchens. There was a decision by government that people may not get food. So community kitchens may be there in each and every panchayat. So within 4 days, we gave the work to SHG Federation. They did the work. We have 1,000 plus community kitchens in 4 days. And they were run for next 30 days. Now it is not there. So such immediate response to the market need, immediate response to the government's need, services, etc. can be provided by SHG Federation. This is one example. Another example could be now government is coming up with a novel scheme that after COVID, there is online classes. Poor people are not having access to online classes, or they have access to TV, but the future of education is a mix of classroom plus online. So it is going like that. So why don't, if the SHG members require laptop, why not they get laptop at lower cost through SHG networks? So there is a small scheme by government where government is trying to give laptops as a loan through SHG networks, and we are coordinating that. So this scheme of government, access to not only market access to different things, including social support by the SHG federations is happening. And another example, the third example is immediate fund requirement. During COVID, Government of Kerala announced a scheme that we will be giving interest-free loans to self-help groups. Banks will give at 9% interest, and self-help groups will get at 0%, and the gap, 9% interest, will be borne by the government. So this scheme is also coordinated by the SHG Federation. So anything, what I want to demonstrate here is the leadership. Leadership to implement project, to conceive projects, to have a conducive atmosphere for making it happen is done by the SHG federations. So the leadership is always there. Now, one small problem with the market access is corporates are sometimes requesting us, you have a good network, why don't you think of selling our products? We have never opened like that, because if you do that, our network is for giving a boost or max market access to the products of self-help groups. They don't have another market. So we got a couple of calls, and as of now, the policy is not to use the network to sell the products or services. And but there are demands from the banks. Why don't you provide insurance services? Why don't you be as our banking correspondent in service sector? Of course, there are requests from the production sector also. So this is something which we have not touched upon, and we have only used SHG federations under the umbrella of NRLM to support SHGs and micro enterprises for their market access and to enable them to success. So this is the broad framework of our experience from the field. And I thank once again for the opportunity. And market access, creating opportunity, funding, novel opportunities, aggregating demand. These are the leaderships provided by the SHG federations. And NRLM is giving, NRLM has everything. Like to enable this, every component is there in NRLM to enable this. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hari Kishore, for giving us the examples of how the federations can work, and you very beautifully summarized in the various ways in which the federations can work. So this is the kind of social capital already created, which can very well partner even with the private sector. Of course, you said you have not yet opened up to it but there is always a possibility. And the role that the SRLM is basically playing in facilitating all this is the role that any agency which wants to come and work with these federations will probably have to play. And as you said, there are funds available in the ecosystem with the community institutions, credit from the banking sector, but then there would be need for some other resources, technical skilling, and all kinds of things. But there is a potential and there is a capacity amongst the women organizations to be able to do all this. So thank you very much, Mr. Harikishore.
Thank you.
Before we go to the last speaker, would you like to take a quick poll again of, so can we have that, the second question for the poll on the screen? So the question here is, cluster federations can support small producers to participate in markets in an equitable manner. So do you agree, do you disagree, or you don't know? So very quickly, can we request the participants to take the poll again? Okay, so I think now, keeping in view that we have very little time left, I would like to go to our last speaker for the day, Professor Rajesh Aithal from IIM Lucknow. So Professor Aithal, with your experience and after having listened to all the panelists about the potential and the ways in which this partnership between the federations and the corporate sector can fructify, could you help us draw a kind of a model, a business model, a business case of private sector to partner with NRLM? So basically, what are the things that the NRLM and the state rural livelihood missions need to do to ensure that these kind of partnerships are actually can actually happen? So over to you, Professor Aithal.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the opportunity to be here in terms of listening to so many perspectives. And maybe I'll make an attempt to sort of put these things together in terms of how do I see the things evolving and all. See, just before that, just before trying to put things together, I'll just add a few thoughts that I had in my mind and all. I think my feeling is that we always try to look at the problem in the village level as a large jigsaw puzzle which has different pieces, and unfortunately we have not been able to put them together in terms of the objectives that we start with and all. I think what we have done or what we have achieved through the women federations and all, that we have achieved the piece of getting people together, getting the funding and getting the activities done. I think now what is left out is a very small bit in terms of perhaps which most of us are here to agree, sort of would agree on, that would be the issue of can we actually involve more of private sector and get the market access issue, last mile distribution problems resolved and all. My feeling is somewhere we also need to look at technology at a much larger perspective. This is that I feel that technology could be leveraged in terms of maybe I think there was a suggestion in the chat box also in terms of saying, can we have a e-marketplace for SHGs where they would actually be able to showcase their products, and then you can invite maybe many of these corporates to actually be a part of that group where they can actually see and maybe assess what do they actually want. Because again, see, I personally would want to see more of a SHG from a seller perspective, a producer perspective than a buyer perspective. Though Professor Neeraj also told about the distribution angle, which is also being explored by many companies, and there's a lot of attempt which is being done. But I still feel that the producer perspective is much more interesting in terms of the impact that you can create. And then now that you have that aggregation and the social capital in place, it's just a question of creating that last mile linkage. That is, I feel that if that piece falls in place, we will have we'll be able to achieve whatever we are planning to achieve. So I just thought that That was my feeling. One other thing which I felt that as a marketing professor, I always felt that I think here one challenge which I see in terms of the market linkages part is that we also need to sort of build in some sort of feedback mechanism. In the sense that we have products which have been produced. That's something which Professor Joy also sort of touched upon. So the point is that we are looking as the further the markets that we want to tap, the differences of what the consumer wants or what the people want and versus what is getting produced, there will be some discrepancy. That discrepancy can be sorted out. For example, if you have a partner in between, if you are sort of there are challenges of that feedback also. If you're open enough, you have the trust between you and the partner to take that feedback in the right spirit and take it forward. So that's something which I felt. Now I'll just quickly sort of try to put the different ideas which came across. The advantage of these panelists were that all of them had very different perspectives from which they were coming in on. So like Professor Joy was talking about more of her studies and what had she found out and all. And I think in terms of real practical examples, Hari Kishorji told us what was actually happening and what are the kind of things that people can do and all. But I'll start with the two people from the corporate world, Sachinji and Neerajji. I felt that Neerajji had more of that distribution perspective. I teach distribution and I realize what he was talking about now. So that's a very interesting perspective of how can we leverage the existing networks into going into the marketplace. And then Sachinji spoke about the other part of it. He said that can we actually look at supply chain leveraging in terms of can we look at making them procurement. So both these sides both these can actually be sides of the 2 points in terms of saying can we actually look at both distribution as well as supply chain. So the same networks can actually work both the ways. You can actually access the market also. You can procure from there, and the challenges in terms of changing consumer habits and those things were some things which I thought were very interesting, and maybe both these things could be actually packaged together and sort of maybe we could take it forward from there on. And obviously Hari Kishorji's examples were sort of, and not just examples, I would say these are things which are actually being done. So so that's where a lot of the opportunity perspective that he spoke about was very interesting in terms of because one of the things which we were talking about was how do we sell these ideas to maybe a corporate organization, though I think Neerajji very clearly said that this is an opportunity for both of them. It's not just that the SAG will get benefited. Companies are also on lookout for this kind of partnerships. So can we be the bridge in between to do that? And I think this opportunity showcasing is something which can actually bring people on board in terms of corporates and but I think one common thing which is coming across was that I think the issue that let's go beyond pilots. Let's go beyond pilots in terms of the scale of operations and all. So I think something which now we have reached the state, maybe 20 years of experience tells us that we should actually perhaps do something at where the scale would not become a challenge. And obviously to begin with, Professor Joy shared experiences of what were the challenges and all. I think these are challenges which have been there for long, and some of these may have been resolved in some parts of the country, but other parts of the country they still tend to exist, and maybe they can be resolved. But then obviously, I think we've collected good ideas in terms of how can you sort of map it out and the way forward and all in terms of how is it to be done. I think this becomes a good starting point for pitching and some amount of documentation of how these things actually can work and what are the kind of ways it can be leveraged, be it distribution, be it opportunities. Can we have a mapping and then sort of showcase all these things. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much. So it was a nice bringing together of the different ideas that have come from all the speakers, and very good suggestions on how do we need to build up a feedback mechanism, go beyond pilots, how do we bridge between having SAG members as distribution channel as also maybe as supply chain instruments. So yes, I think we have learned quite a lot from today's discussions, a lot of food for thought. Many of these things that we have actually in NRLM, we are kind of aware of, and we have been trying to work. What I have been saying continuously is that livelihoods is a really difficult nut to crack, and the scale on which we need to do this with it's huge, and we definitely cannot do it unless we have lots of partnerships with the private sector, with all with technical organizations, everything. So unless we are able to do all that, we really cannot go on scale. And I have really got a lot of very good ideas today from all the speakers on the way forward. We'll be probably documenting all this and coming out with some document from here also. So thank you very much, all the speakers. It's really been very, very interesting. So maybe we do have time for a couple of questions. I see one question from Mr. Shabir Haider. And he says, I'm from PepsiCo India, responsible for rural go-to-market planning for the foods business. Keen to understand your plans for partnerships with for-profit businesses. So Mr. Haider, actually under NRLM, there are a lot of partnerships already with, there have been, I am aware of partnerships in Bihar with maybe Big Bazaar or similar kind of organizations. And as Mr. Kishore also said, in different malls and all, to try to take a space, and so that kind of partnership. So definitely we want partnerships with for-profit business organizations also, because that is how we access market. But it will have to be a kind of two-way process where the businesses also will have to provide some kind of support to these federations. And as all the speakers today have said, this kind of partnership can actually be a win-win situation for both the organizations. There is another question from one Ms. Aline Mukherjee. Is it possible to create an e-market platform for SAG products, or delivery tying up or partner with India Post? Would any of the panelists like to take this question? It's there on your chat box.
Ma'am, do you want me to answer that?
Please.
We have multiple platforms in the e-space for selling SHG products. I have a website, kudumbasreebazaar.com. It is our own Amazon. We have about 1,000 products there. We have we signed MOU with Amazon, and we are partner in Saheli project. Now we are signing MOU with Flipkart, and also we are partnering GEM and all other government e-marketplaces. The challenge is basically, so even though we have an Amazon of Kudumbashree, sales is very less. Sales is very less because we are not able to market it. We are not able to promote it in the way all other service providers are promoting. So that is a challenge. Creating a marketplace, bring capacity building of SHG or enterprises, asking them to pack and deliver, even in a decentralized manner. We have an MOU with Post. So decentralized packing and sending is not a problem. Centralized warehouse and sending is not a problem. Marketing is the challenge. Using and maintaining quality and ensuring the customer satisfaction continuously is a challenge for e-marketplace. Creating infrastructure and system is okay. It's possible, and we have demonstrated that. So now we are trying to solve that mystery.
Thank you, Mr. Hari Kishore. So it's very much possible It needs a lot of work, inventory management, some trainings, etc. But definitely it is possible and is already being tried also. There is one question from Ms. Sneha Sood for Professor Simi. It says, while talking about private sector partnership, do we need to plan for an exit or work towards embedding the CLFs in the value chain of private sector enterprises? Once private sector invests in the partnerships, is it feasible to look for a long-term engagement?
I think it is absolutely possible. So when I said exit, what I mean is exit from those hand-holding responsibilities. So it could be multiple actors. It could be the government. It could be NRLM. It could be the NGOs, or even private sector when they are engaged in that initial training and hand-holding. But we should see to that the beneficiaries themselves reach a stage where they are able to operate this on their own, and they are able to enter into equitable partnerships. And they can continue as the value chain partners, nothing stopping from that. But getting to that stage should be our aim, and existing from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Joyce. And there is another question. I think this will go to Mr. Kumar. So it's from Arjun. If any CLF, I think, if any CLF wants to contract manufacturing, what type of support will come from Colgate-Palmolive? I mean, I think maybe not specifically what will come, but what kind of such organizations, what kind of support can they give?
Yeah, so while I replied in the chat box, but still for everyone, a company specific answer may not help, because it's an opportunity which exists. That opportunity has to be exercised. So, the basic fundamental I would like to highlight. What happens is, if collaboration happens at the center of the need, the need, what bigger problem a collaboration will go and solve. So let's say if Agarbatti is a solution to the community which is in a need, there is the contract manufacturing, because you would want local manufacturer reach out to the marketplace quickly, because you want local products, or you want freshness of the product. So it all depends which category that you want to be in, plus what is the company's requirement. But the bigger piece is the need. If there is no need, and the big need is always a problem. So let's say Amul solved a bigger problem for the consumer at the household to have the fresh, unadulterated product at the right price throughout the year. That was a bigger problem got solved, and that's the reason why Amul is successful and is getting replicated. But if you try to replicate dairy cooperative into other product cooperative without having the problem in hand, there is a guarantee that it will fail. Hence, I'll just give a guideline on that rather than a company specific. I'm sure people will lap on it the moment it goes as a cost advantage, the product quality, plus there is a connect in the consumer's mind. There's a the wave in the entire world around the protectionism. This is my product, this is my country. So there's enough environment for such collaboration to grow and prosper. That's what I'll say at this point of time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I think maybe one last question. This is from Mr. Vishnu Parida. Actually, Mr. Vishnu Parida is part of the Jharkhand SR State Rural Livelihood Mission. So his question is, and this the professors from IIM can take, is it possible to create incubation centers in IIMs or IRMA or other institutions for marketplace study and research for SAG federations? In fact, I will just add to this. So under the World Bank supported project, we are also trying to create some enterprises larger, and we need some people, some incubators to actually support these. So that kind of role also. So can such incubation centers be created in these institutions?
Okay. Such incubation centers already exist. Yeah, so IIM Ahmedabad has one, IIM Bangalore has one, and then IIM Kozhikode has one. IRMA has one. So they do actually exist, and IITs have been having a good system, RUTAC, which is primarily oriented towards the rural technologies. So we do have that system. So if you just reach out to any of these institutions, I'm sure they will respond very positively.
Thank you. That is nice to know. So definitely we'll encourage the state rural livelihood missions to reach out to the incubation centers in their own states at least. So thank you very much. Madhu, can we take more questions or do we wrap up now because it's past 7 now?
Yeah, I guess there was one, I think, question from SBI General. I guess if the person would like to, is still there and would like to ask this question, was specifically, around another area which hasn't been addressed till now. Not sure if he's there still. So, yes. So I guess, yeah, we should probably move towards closure.
Okay, so I think we've already kind of summed up the different kind of suggestions that have come, and now we would really, with the support from CDCC, we really look into all the suggestions and see how we can go forward. I think we completely correct that we need to build some models and take it to scale. And there is definitely a lot of potential for these kind of partnerships, and this is the way we'll be moving forward. So without saying much, I think we've already kind of summarized after each speaker and before this also. So let me once again thank all the panelists for taking time out and coming for this, and really look forward to support from all of you and also similar institutions, similar organizations to be able to support NRLM and all the state rural livelihood missions in working with the federations of the women. We put in a lot of effort with these federations, and we really think there is a lot of potential and it will be a win-win situation for both. So looking forward to a lot of support from all of you also in this endeavor. So with those, I'll end my talk, and over to you, Madhu, to
Yeah.
close.
And Shivam, can we have the poll results, please?
Ma'am, sorry, meanwhile, Bala here. I have raised that question from SBI General. So if we have time.
Yes. Yes, Bala.
Yeah. So we were just looking at the opportunity as well as the need. So if CLFs can become as a social security partner, as well as an income generation factor for the financial sustainability. So SBI General have that mandate to go to the rural area and increase the rural penetration. So we were looking at different models, and we found that CLF is one of the best models wherein we can reach out to the last mile in terms of both financial security as well as social security. So having said that, is there any scope in extending that arm in terms of getting into that financial inclusion mode as well through insurance is something that we would like to explore.
Would Mr. Hari Kishore want to take this? So I think this is very much possible. In fact, we have been looking at various kind of models where CLFs could work as maybe corporate VCs. So on the same lines, definitely whatever you are suggesting in terms of financial security and social security, they can definitely work. In terms of insurance and all, also we have under NRLM in a few states been doing a lot of work. And the SRLM has played a very important role in this, particularly in Bihar, Jivika, where large number of, women had been brought under the insurance coverage, and we have a model in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana also, where a digital system is also in place, and the federations are playing a very important role in ensuring claim settlements and things. So definitely there is a lot of scope, and we would be open to the idea of this kind of partnership. So definitely we can have more discussions on this.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, ma'am. So Shivam, very quickly, moving on to the poll results, please. Thank you. And the next question, please. Great. So overwhelming response towards building partnerships with private sector. So with these words, I would like to thank everyone, and thanks Neeta ma'am particularly for triggering this new and exciting facet towards building win-win partnerships between SAT federations and private sector. I'm sure the participants from SRLM, civil society and private sector who are attending this session and listening to this are encouraged to explore and pilot these partnerships. I thank all our panelists for giving their valuable time, and I'm sure this is only the beginning and the dialogue will continue at various levels. On our part, we are committed to working with NRLM on taking this forward, and we incorporate the insights shared today to prepare a draft paper going forward on CLFs to build market-based partnerships. Thank you to everyone. And proceedings from the webinar will be available on the NRLM website and also on the organizers' website. We'll also be sharing it with all the participants. Thank you and good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.